Good evening. Welcome to the In the City for Good primary candidate forum. This is the segment when we have our mayoral candidates with us tonight. And what I'd like to do is just read what we have sent out to our candidates, not the whole thing, but part of what we have, because the goal of our forums is to ask how each of them can address the issues of importance to the people in the city for good. So our forums are structured so that we want to hear each candidate, and we send the questions out so they are prepared. They have some time. We will probably not be able to ask all of the questions that we sent out, but we will try to have as many as possible. In order to do that, we'll start with each of the candidates having 30 seconds to just introduce themselves. Then we will start with the questions, and each question will be giving you 45 seconds to respond. We will have a 10-second warning, and we'll try as much as possible to get that to you. And if I don't get that to you, I may say at 45 seconds, sorry, your time is up. We want you to finish your thought. Then we don't have rebuttals in this format because we want to go on to the next questions. Once all of the questions are covered, then we will ask each of the candidates to give a 60-second summary of why the audience should be voting for them. What we will also do tonight, because for the mayors, because we only have 4 candidates, it's possible we may be able to allow a little bit more time for each of you for some of these questions. When we are through, you will be able to ask other questions of the candidates, and perhaps in your summaries, we have turned off the chat function. So I don't think we'll have the chat box available for all people. So you might want to give the best way for people to reach you if they have more questions. We are looking forward to this, and we are using a random generator for the questions order, okay, so that you each have to follow the same person. So the random generator, I will let you know who's the next person to answer the question. And we hope that will provide some fairness as well. So with no further ado, I'd like to start with the introductory section. And so the generator has said that, Kim, if you would give us a 60-second summary of, did I say 60? I'm going to get this time all right. A short summary of what you'd like to cover tonight. And then Britt, you will be next, Brad, and then Dean for this part of it. So Kim?
Good evening. I'm thrilled to be here today. You have some wonderful topics to cover, and I'm excited to do that. I've been your mayor for the last 4 years. I bring a wealth of experience as a volunteer and as a community leader to the table, and would love another 4 years to be able to kind of come out of the pandemic and really spend more time activating the ideas I ran for in the first place. And we'll talk about those later today. So I'll end it with that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Britt, your summary?
All right. Thank you. I'm Britt Noser, and I was motivated to run for mayor of my hometown by what I felt like were some bad decisions being made here. And so ultimately this compelled me to get off the couch and get into the political arena. And I see bad decisions affecting housing, which I know is kind of the topic tonight. Sometimes when you have a $5.6 billion public-private partnership, there are putting their thumb on the scale, you have some unintended consequences. And so I think that's part of the problems that we'll be discussing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brad?
Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank In the City for Good for hosting tonight's debate forum. I also want to thank everyone that's watching online. For decades, we have chosen leaders that may have had partisan views, but they didn't simply follow party platform. They made decisions that was best for Rochester in nonpartisan fashion. And frankly, we're in the spirit of losing that compromise, that desire to listen to and hear from all sides. If you're really looking for that person that's going to be positivity and bring energy and vibrancy to the mayor's position, I'm that candidate, and I respectfully ask for your vote on Tuesday, August 9th. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. And Dean.
Hi, I'm Dean Koutsukos. I'm a father of 2 young children. I'm running for mayor so we can have a safe and affordable future for them and the rest of Rochester. I bring 30 years of broad experience in public service, which I believe will be beneficial in providing the best opportunities, provide priorities and affordability for Rochester. The financial hardships and bullying happening in our community and schools need to be addressed so it gets better instead of worse. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And now the first question is going to be, are you satisfied with how the DMC is functioning? And how would you improve it? Even if you're whether or not you're satisfied. Britt, you will be the first person, followed by Brad, then Dean, then Kim. And you will have 45 seconds to give us your thoughts on this. So, Britt?
Okay. I feel like DMC, when I first heard about it years ago, I thought, it sounded like a good idea. It was going to be a great advantage for our city, for an improvement in infrastructure, et cetera. I think in practice, it feels like DMC is to some degree swallowing the entire city and has created a gold rush, which I think has driven up housing costs and to a large extent. And a lot of the citizens I've talked to feel like they don't see the benefit of DMC to them. So this reimagining as an international city or a medical magic kingdom might not be what citizens of Rochester want, who are the deep root stakeholders here. And it might not be what patients want either. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Okay, then Brad, how would you answer this? How satisfied with how are you satisfied with how the DMC is functioning, and how would you improve it?
Sure. I think that comment about the gold rush is intriguing since someone sold properties in this town as well from the benefits of DMC. Am I happy with DMC right now? It's halftime at DMC next year. We're in the 10-year of the 20-year plan coming up. And what's happened is the DMC has to re-engage, re-energize, and recommit to this community. The vision is for quality and for a quality experience for patients, visitors, and the community now and in the future. And simply, the DMC has overlooked the community. For people to say DMC is going to go away, that's just not practical. It's state legislation. It's too much of an economic impact for our state, our county, and our city when you look at the tax revenues coming in. We have 150,000 square footage of space that's open downtown. I don't see DMC doing anything to attract new businesses coming in. So I truly believe that the DMC has to re-energize, re-engage, and recommit to the community, especially the local businesses who they've truly lost touch with.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Dean, would you give us your thoughts on this?
Sure. No, I don't think most people, including myself, are satisfied with DMC. It's a great idea that's poorly executed, poorly planned. DMC board needs to be a majority of Rochester citizens, not just two-fifths of it. That way they can better understand the impact of Rochester. We need DMC to focus on expansion, not replacing what the city has done for good for so many years. And it needs to be planned better to minimize the impacts on the citizens, especially financially. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, then Kim, and I'm having trouble with my stopwatch. Okay, all right.
The projects and plans that underlie the DMC initiative are unfolding as they were planned, although their focus and impact have broadened with time. DMC was developed by Mayo Clinic using their internal research and initially did lack significant community input, but the project leaders have responded to community feedback and the perception of concern by seeking more input from the community members and having them participate in the planning and design phases of each project. This effort is bringing experts and the community together to produce better outcomes. DMC concepts and plans all must receive city council approval before they move forward. And that's something I think that's not generally understood. I think that reaffirming the council's relationship with DMC by ensuring that their input is incorporated early on will also make the projects better. and work for both local residents and our visitors.
Thank you to you all. And now a kind of a related question that because Rochester is one of the fastest growing cities in Minnesota, maybe the fastest, and also becoming more and more diverse, with DMC having the goal of sustaining Rochester to be an international city for health, what is your view of the mayor's role in making sure that Rochester is an American city of health for everyone? And for this, we will start with Brett. I hope you don't all mind my using your first names and not calling you. Thank you. So Brad will be first, and then Dean, then Kim, then Britt. So again, what is your view of the mayor's role in making sure that Rochester is an American city of health for everyone? So Brad, if you'd start with us.
Certainly, thank you. I believe right now we already do a fine job of that. I will say while we're growing fast, there's other communities growing at 20 to 70% much faster than we're growing. We got to give some builders and developers the reasons to come here. We have to take off some of these regulatory fees and make it intriguing for them to come here. But when in terms of the engagement of the community, we have to really encourage people. We're building about 1,000 units of multifamily housing per year in this community. We have to start really re-emphasizing the purchasing of homes and not just multifamily housing. Why it serves a purpose, that alone will not make it a healthy community. We have to start investing and having people purchasing homes in our community, not just renting.
Great, thank you. And then Dean, what do you see the mayor's role to be in making Rochester an American city of health for everyone?
Well, one of the important things for staying healthy is being able to do the sports activities, making sure there's pools available, golf courses. I mean, as a mayor, we had a crisis a while ago with pools. The mayor should have been able to work with the hotels, asking them if they could donate an hour a week on a rotating basis to our swim clubs. The hotels have a lot of downtime. It'd be promoting the hotels, helping out the kids. The hotels could use that as marketing for staycations here in the city, which will help our sales taxes. And also there's a golf course honoring our veterans that we could do a better job keeping open with better marketing.
Thank you. And Kim, how about you and the mayor's role in this place?
Sure, thank you. My own initiatives, such as Move with the Mayor, which has been going on now this is its third year, is one way that I can help support America's City for Health and also create a healthy city. There are also multiple efforts underway by DMC, the county, and the city to make sure that Rochester is America's City for Health. My role is to provide support to these initiatives and I attend as many meetings as I can, as well as the development during this period of growth that supports a healthy city, such as creating sustainable and resilient Sustainability and Resiliency Task Force that came up with 104 action items for our community city, the community residents, and the city of Rochester. And some of those projects that you're already seeing are clean renewable electric buses and the new BRT that we're working on, LED light replacements throughout the entire city, designing walkable and bikeable communities, making sure our buildings that are being built are LED LEED certified, as well as a strong park system with green spaces. So there's something for everyone.
Okay, great, thank you. And Britt.
Yes, I think we do a fine job in this town. We spend plenty on the health of our citizens. I think we have to worry about the health, though, to some degree, of our small businesses. And Brad mentioned a building that the sale may or may not go through. It's still up in the air. But what happened with that is DMC again squeezing out small owners. And I think we're better off with a society where more people own a slice instead of just having the big powerful entities come in and own bigger chunks and have economies of scale where small producers and small owners can't compete. And that's why I offer that. I offer that option as a leader, someone who has been a small owner and someone who is not in debt to anyone except other small owners and the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, and we've heard affordable housing mentioned already. We knew that would come up. So what I would ask is, what would be your first specific action as a mayor to address the need for more affordable housing in Rochester? And so Dean will ask you first, then Kim, then Britt, then Brad. So again, what would be your first specific action? And Kim, your first specific action in your next term to address the need for more affordable housing in Rochester. So Dean?
Well, first thing we have to do is tackle how many constructions projects we've got related to DMC. We're driving the construction projects costs way high. You can't build affordable housing if the cost to build it is not affordable. That would be the first thing I would address.
Okay. Anything more, or that I don't want to cut you off.
No, that pretty much summarizes. We got to
Sure.
get the cost of construction down by not oversaturating the construction market.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, and then Kim, your first specific action in your next term.
So I'll go broader than that. For the past 4 years, I've worked with the city council and staff and many partners to help Rochester increase the amount of affordable housing in our community, using that Maxfield study to determine our needs, both in the number and the variety of options. We are making progress. We just announced a new partnership with the county and HUD called House America to address the need for housing for folks experiencing homelessness in our community. This is a commitment to begin building 2 new units in this next year, giving us access to grant opportunities. So reducing the number of people affected by homelessness, it's going to take time and creative approaches. And that does not mean building cheap structures that pass energy inefficiency and costs onto residents. There are many other options that are already being done, but I think House America is where I'll be focusing.
Okay, great, thank you. And Britt, what about you with the first specific action?
The first thing I would work toward would be cutting the budget, and that way we could provide some property tax relief. I don't think, in terms of providing affordable housing, I don't see that as the role of the government. I don't want any more expensive consultant studies, or I want to see more organic growth. I think that's stable growth. And this is, again, the problem when you have a boom that's artificially created. You create these unintended consequences. And I don't see the government playing a big role. The deregulation, some programs to help homeless is great, working with people that are already taking on this, citizen leaders like Dan Fifield at the Landing and Dorothy Dayhouse. There can be some support given to that, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Brad, what about your first specific action for affordable housing?
Well, I don't know if we can even call it affordable housing. I've spoken to that before. It's getting pretty high up there. First thing we could do is maybe make a proposal to the city council to reduce fees and maybe give a 2-week guarantee to any builders that want to build homes that are $375,000 or less. Let's work with them. Let's cut the fees and let's stop the bureaucracy, move things a little bit quicker. I would certainly continue to support the Rochester Area Foundation and First Homes program. That's been a great program. I'd look to also initiate or strengthen the partnership with the Coalition of the Rochester Area Housing. It's a great partnership. They invested $15 million between the city of Rochester, Olmsted County, Mayo and Clinic to preserve and produce more affordable homes. And the economic boom back for Olmsted County as a whole, once that's achieved, will be up to over $200 million. We have to take partnerships like that and enhance it.
Great. I think you get the award for being exactly 45 seconds. You're all doing well. I appreciate it. It kind of related to this, a more specific area of affordable housing. And you had this longer question sent to you, but local and state governments incentivizing redevelopment has had a disastrous effect on the health of many low-income disabled people. The problem is that when a disabled person has spent a substantial amount of their own money making reasonable modifications to a rental unit, so it's accessible for the disabilities, there is nowhere else accessible for them to go when that housing is slated for destruction. How will you do your part to ensure that no more accessible housing units are destroyed in the name of progress? And how will you ensure that disabled people's health isn't the first thing sacrificed while leaders tout the health of their community? And Kim, this will be your question to answer first, then Brad, then Britt, then Dean. So again, a long question, but some important questions to be resolved.
Thank you. This is just a tragic occurrence, and it happens too often in cities where there's a lot of redevelopment. As we've recently seen just in the papers in the last week, private developers are purchasing housing and tearing them down. And those are things that they're private investments. They're not controlled by the city in any way, shape, or form. So too often people are displaced. It's especially concerning when there are people with disabilities or people living on tight budgets and there's no place for them to go. So I'm open to ideas, but certainly will assure that the city, any purchases the city makes, do not displace people. But we can't affect the private market, private market in that aspect. So there aren't easy answers, but in areas that we do have control, we need to assure that everyone has a safe place.
Thank you. And I have to make sure I'm doing the order I told you. Brad, what would you say to this one?
I agree. I think that is an unfortunate situation. It sounds like this particular question was maybe one in particular where someone experienced something, and so I don't know all the details, but certainly we have to take care of our individuals with disabilities. When you look at situations like that, currently, if we have dedicated staff that could be the go-to person, not additional staff, but a current staff member that could be the go-to person for individuals with disabilities that are running tight through these situations. Get planning and zoning involved, get city staff involved, and see what we can do. We got to work ahead of situations like that, not behind. Fixed incomes is the real deal, not only for individuals with disabilities and seniors, but we have to do everything we can to take care of our individuals with disabilities to make sure that we're meeting the day-to-day needs with them, because they are taxpayers. And we don't want to see them going through any more hardship than what they are going through. And housing is just as important for them as anyone else.
Great, thank you. And Britt, I'm sorry. Yes, and your response to this long question?
Well, I must say this is something that I've never given any specific thought to until I saw this question. But certainly if this is something that's happening, that's unfortunate. And again, I'm not sure I see the city as somebody who can efficiently solve a problem like this. I think it would be something more for charity or something like that. I'm not sure the city can continue to take on these types of roles. And I think if there's a market for this type of housing, I think the market is usually fairly good at meeting that demand. And if not, I think we have other things in our community that can help with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Dean, what about your response to this multifaceted question?
Okay. Just reading what the question said, the person was looking for what the government can do about not incentivizing areas that are affordable housing or the housing that the disabled use. We can incentivize other areas to provide housing, replacement housing, instead of targeting those areas that person was concerned about. But there are some legal issues on those other areas, like the other ones we're saying, that we can't tell a private developer what they can't do, but we can control or incentivize things.
Okay, good. Thank you. So then we had a question is, again, these are kind of related because many people want to see Rochester to be seen as a compassionate city. So what should the city's actions be what does that mean to be a compassionate city? And for example, how would the city handle the construction of tent cities in our parks? For this one, we'd like Britt, then Kim, then Dean, then Brad. So again, as a compassionate city, how would the city handle the construction of tent cities in our parks?
Well, I think tent cities in our parks, if they violate our ordinances, and so I don't think that they should be allowed to form, or if they do, they should be disbanded, because I don't think it's helpful to the person in need, and I don't think it's fair to other citizens. So I think the compassion piece comes in, again, with all the citizen leaders and all of the wonderful charities we have in Rochester. And again, with homelessness, I think of things like the Landing and Dan and Holly and the Salvation Army, and these types of people are working hard to solve these problems. And in my opinion, from what I've seen, they're doing a much better job than the city does. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Kim, what would you say about the construction of tent cities in relationship to being a compassionate city?
Sure. Tent cities and other temporary shelters used by people with homelessness require a multi-pronged approach, and we need to recognize and address multiple factors that lead to homelessness. In Rochester, we've sought to provide adequate shelters day and night, and so that we can provide comfortable places for folks to live. And has been mentioned, the city actually worked with the Landing and the Salvation Army and many other people, including Zumber Valley Medical Society, who provides healthcare for individuals. It is about being compassionate and providing alternatives like a pallet home or a tiny home community that we're talking about currently. These approaches have been successful elsewhere. We have to have that housing first and built for zero mentality to end homelessness here in Rochester. We've got a great start. We've made great headway in a very short period of time, but there's more to do, and I'm committed to it.
Oops. Thank you. And Dean, your response on this, the compassionate city and tent cities, I'm sorry, and how we would handle the construction of tent cities?
Well, tent cities is a subset of the major problem. We're having people homeless and living in tent cities because things are too expensive for them to deal with. Stresses in life, mental illnesses have caused them to lose their jobs, take alternative roads. Some of them victims of crime. They've been victims of domestic abuse and other family issues, and they're not able to hold a job. They're not able to deal with some of the chemical dependencies and other mental issues. And we need to tackle those up front before they become problems, and as well as dealing with them now that they are problems, which will keep them out of the need for the tent cities.
Thank you. And finally, Brad, your response on the city of compassion, or compassionate city, and tent cities in our parks.
Certainly, we do live in a city of compassion. I think we all know that, but tent cities, I certainly can't support that. But what's more important is it's not healthy for the individual or the community as a whole. What we have to do is redirect those individuals and find them services that they need to better help them. We have many wonderful nonprofits in this community. Others have spoken about it. We also need to have that constant dialogue between those nonprofits. We want to make sure that we're working together. No brick and mortar itself is going to solve this problem. We want to make sure that we're giving the services to those individuals that they need so they can better get back on their feet as well. But just the cosmetic, the look of the tent cities, it's not healthy for anybody. And I would want to see really a great group of people come together and doing what we can, meeting on a regular basis to say, this is what's going on now. What can we do to make this better? And at the end of the day, that makes us that much more compassionate.
Good. And thank you. You know what? You just made it very easy for me to segue into the next question. Some of you already touched upon it, but I'm going to give you another opportunity to talk about what other efforts would you have the city take towards the homeless, because homelessness does impact emergency services, the library, even our skyways. So are there other efforts that the city could take? And we know that you've mentioned these other things, but perhaps there is something that you would promote having the city do. So we're going to start with Kim, then Britt, then Brad, then Dean. So Kim.
Sure, thank you. The city and county have been working together for the last 3 years now on the homelessness issue. The Echo Center offers support when the warming shelter closes, and the Landing is very soon to open its doors with a new location that will lighten the load on the library. There are options such as a Salvation Army for our area homeless, but some choose not to use them. And the library has become the place for folks to go. In answer to that, they've hired a social worker. And again, the library is a city entity. And so that social worker is offering assistance to those who need it. The county has been receptive to the city as a partner, but they have been quite clear that we have our own and different role, and that is supportive, primarily to the work that they do, partnering with them, being a strong partner actually, and keeping them informed of what's happening downtown, our police responses, our skyway issues, library impacts, and business impacts that they may not be aware of.
Okay, thank you. And Britt, what, again, what would you have the city take because of these impacts on other parts of the city?
I would have the city, or as the mayor, I would try to bring focus to the fact that I think what a lot of the problem is for many of these issues is a lack of spirituality or a lack of religion, for lack of a better term. So I would love to engage with churches, with the mosque, synagogue, all hands on deck for an effort to help feed these homeless with some spirituality. I think that, and in talking to a lot of people who deal with this problem, they agree that this is a big component that's missing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Brad, your comments on this?
Yeah, in terms of emergency services and libraries, certainly if they're there to use the library for those needs, that's fine. It's just something that they can't be hanging out and causing disruption. Public safety is very important. But I want to really, what's also important is being that liaison to help out, being that support staff, being your mayor, their leader to address these issues, making sure they have resources through the nonprofits, if it's shelter, if it's transportation, if it's legal services, if it's clothing, if it's medical services, if it's dental services. Many of our nonprofits right now are doing that. You know, you talk about the landing. They have a doctor that comes in about 3 times a week. They got paramedics that are checking them out. So what we just need to do as a city is keep that dialogue going on with their nonprofits, make sure that these individuals are receiving the services they need and they are afforded to, and that we also find out what we can do to help them so they can get back on their feet.
Great, thank you. And Dean, your input on this.
This would be a great place to implement what the state human services does with our mobile crisis units. They bring in psychiatric teams, psychiatric doctors, not just social workers, because a lot of these are facing mental health crises. NAMI's recommended that some people that have successfully recovered go to these people and help them out, because one of the problems is they're refusing help. And if you've got somebody that's recovered and understands what they've been going through, they can assist them to get to the places where they need to get the help.
Great. Okay, thank you. Now, we have, under Mayor Norton's leadership, Rochester has won the $1 million Bloomberg Award. What will happen to the award should Mayor Norton not get reelected? What would be your input? And so this question, we will have Mayor Norton go last, and then you can indicate what will happen if you do get reelected. We have to have the question slightly worded differently. Under Mayor Norton's leadership, Rochester has won the $1 million Bloomberg Award. What will happen to the award should Mayor Norton not get reelected? And Brett, we will start with you, and then Brad, Dean, and then Kim. So Brett, what would you see with that?
Well, first of all, as I've made clear in the past, I don't see this as a philanthropy award. Any amount of money like this that's coming into our city from a non-elected person is disenfranchising those who live here. So I don't know to really answer that, I'd have to know better if we could just keep the money and use it to help the homeless or help who else? No, she's shaking her head. I would, otherwise, if we can't, I would just return the money, because I don't want this kind of influence in the city. And I see it as an outside influence that isn't part of the natural organic fabric of Rochester. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then Brad, if you would give us your thoughts on this, on the Bloomberg Award.
Sure. Most grants come with stipulations on how that money is to be spent. So first we have to take a look at are we able to meet the needs of what the grant is asking for? and there's specifics. And so many times grants will even guide you saying, in the event that you cannot meet these needs, this is what we'd like to see you do with these funds. Again, I'd have to dig into it more too, to one, find out, can we meet these needs? And if we can't, what's the process that the donor is asking the recipient of this grant? What would there be desires to return the money, or what other, could there be a secondary cause? Again, I'm not sure about that, but most grants are quite specific on what you're able to do in the event that you can't fulfill the need.
Okay, great, thank you. And Dean?
Well, the first, I'd get the input from the city attorney on what we can do with this money without violating federal laws on implementing programs based on race and gender. And then to minimize administrative costs, we need to work with programs out there that are really helping us out. The AGC, which is the Association of General Contractors, has programs helping out the women, the people of color. NSPE, the Society of Women Engineers, and other technical programs do too. We can work with them, as well as reestablishing construction trade programs back in our schools, automotive technology back in our schools, as well as civil engineering technologies in our college. A lot of things got thrown out by our school boards and the legislatures in the past. We need to get those back so the people that we want to help can learn and grow and advance in these careers.
Thank you. And now Kim, and maybe I should restate the question, and you can choose to say, okay, what will happen if you don't get reelected, or what you will plan on doing if you are elected. So reelected. I know it's a little awkward to try and figure out the wording of the question. So yes.
That's perfectly fine. I'm absolutely thrilled that we were one of 3 in the country and 15 in the world to win this grant. It was an absolute thrill and honor to have been chosen. I am committed to implementing a nation-leading effort to get BIPOC women into the workforce. It will be $1 million from Bloomberg, as well as $750,000 from the federal government, because they were so excited about what we're doing. I've begun working with building relationships with unions, with the Girl Scouts, with Jeremiah programs, and others. The project's goal is to provide upward mobility for families by securing great careers in construction and other high demanding jobs driven by DMC and the growth in our community. Additionally, I'm working with the Department of Labor and Collider locally to build out capacity for folks to become entrepreneurs and business owners as a next step. This is thrilling, and I'm so happy and hope I'll be able to finish the work.
Okay, great. Now, because we have only 4 candidates and we have a little bit of time, the next question, which you were all given, we're going to give it's kind of hard to get it in 45 seconds, because the question was, what are the 3 positions or policies you will strive to implement if you were elected? And so what I'd like to do is be able to give you each about a minute, and maybe I'll stretch it to a minute, 10 seconds, so that you have time to give me 3 things and not have to speak in 1.5 times speed. So for this one, we will be starting, I have to watch my random generator. Brad will start, then Dean, then Kim, then Britt. So Brad, you have a little over a minute to tell us your 3 positions or policies you will strive to implement if you are elected.
Certainly, thank you for the question. Certainly, public safety has always been something I've been talking about nonstop. I'm just not, public safety is not a bullet point on my brochure or website. It's something I've done a lot in the past. We need to continue to support our Rochester Police Department and our Rochester Fire Department. We're going to need 2 fire stations in the next 10 years. We need to start working on that at this time. We do have a drug problem in our community. What are we doing as a community to address that? Because drugs leads to other matters as well. So public safety will be at the forefront to support that. Helping local businesses get back on their feet. They're crushed. We've lost, there's such a disconnect right now with our city government and local businesses. I've walked thousands of doors. I've talked to business owners. I've talked to their employees, and they simply are not being heard. It is loud and clear. That's not me saying that as a candidate. That's what the citizens of Rochester are saying. So we need to get local businesses back on their feet. and create some initiatives to help them. Finally, fiscal responsibility. We really, we're pretty much in a recession going into one. We really need to watch our budget, how we're spending money. Are we using it appropriately? Consultants serve a purpose, but we've spent so much money on consulting fees. Do you know who the best consultants are? It's the citizens, it's the taxpayers of Rochester, Minnesota. So I'd be looking to utilize those consultants to make sure that we are listening and we're learning to what they feel is important as well. So public safety, helping local businesses get back on their feet, and of course, fiscal responsibility for the taxpayers of Rochester.
Okay, good, thank you. And then Dean, if you would give us your three areas.
Oh, first I would figure out what our tax rate needs to be so we're competitive with the rest of the country and the rest of the state. Right now, we're 90% higher than the rest of the state and 65% higher than the rest of the country. And then based on what that tax rate is, figure out how we can address the needs, then start looking at the wants, and then maybe if we have extra money, then addressing the wishes. That way, when we're in a tough time, we can provide the needs. When we're in good times, we can add the wants and wishes. Other thing I'd address is tackling crime before it really becomes a problem with a person, before they become career criminals, before it becomes a lifetime habit, especially dealing with bullying, rapes, assaults, because once somebody's raped, something assault, that's something that goes with them the rest of their life. We need to stop it before it happens. And the other thing is to address opportunities for all. We can't just pick certain races, certain genders we want to help. We need to help everybody because we're starting to switch the pendulum back the other direction, and we can't. There are people that can't handle that anymore.
Thank you. And Kim?
Well, first, the mayor doesn't get to implement policy. So I just want to be really clear about that without city council support. So it is important that we continue to build strong relationships with the staff and the city council on the issues that I identified 4 years ago as priorities when I ran for office. And they really haven't changed. Making sure we have safe neighborhoods with affordable housing for everyone, managing growth and development so that the entire community benefits, and creating a sustainable future in many ways. And we're using a citizens task force to do that by developing skills and processes at City Hall for a top-notch city government. There is no disconnect with businesses. Our community was hurt by the pandemic. The city absolutely initially went out and gave our citizens tax dollars to support businesses almost from the first week of the pandemic. And we've supported those businesses with CARES Act and ARPA funds as much as we can after. So I will continue to work on my platform, and it aligns very well with the strategic goals of the city council. So I think we're well on the way to providing a top-notch, high-quality city for the people who live here.
Thank you. And Britt?
Yes, I will remind everybody that we cannot continue to blame the pandemic for bad leadership. So that my three areas are public safety, reforming DMC to better serve our citizens, and getting partisan agendas out of our city government. And so we've all seen the crime escalate, the shootings, the fights, the knifings, the closing of the fair earlier last year. Hopefully we can do better this year. But we have work to do with the policing, and part of it is the police force knowing they have the support of City Hall, and part of it goes beyond that with prosecutors and judges as well. DMC, I see as needing reform to better serve the citizens. A lot of the infrastructure with DMC, as I said before, is something that is helpful. But the public projects, the Discovery Walk for $28 million, the redesigning of the Peace Plaza into the sort of Pyongyang Square that it is now at the cost of $18 million. So people work hard for their taxes. They sweat for them. They suffer for them. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we're wasting money on $28,000 park benches. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we now have just about enough time. So we are going to wrap up. And as we talked about before, each of the candidates will have 60 seconds to summarize your overall reasons for running for office and any closing remarks. And so We will, and this will be in the order Britt, then Kim, then Dean, and then Brad. And you will again have 60 seconds to give your final statement. So beginning with you, Britt.
All right, thank you. Thank you again to all citizens and whoever is watching this program for taking that opportunity to be engaged in the process. Being engaged as citizens is what has been lacking, I think. And, you know, we blame ourselves for that. We can't blame our elected leaders. So I encourage everyone to get involved, to visit all of the candidates' websites, visit social media, take a look at all of the different positions that we've all staked out. And I think if you do that and you want citizen-led government, if you want that common sense, someone who has practical knowledge from my work experience, I think I represent that candidate. And so I would ask everyone, as I said, to take a look at my platform, and then I'd love to have your vote on August 9th. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then we have Kim.
Wonderful, thank you. So my vision for this community is to have a high quality of life with opportunities for every single person that lives here. We've covered some great issues today. Part of it is really understanding what the community wants, knowing that we all don't agree on the things that we want in this community, but being willing to listen, and as a leader to strike the right balance about what's right for this community moving ahead, knowing that you can't make everyone happy all the time. That's just a fact about leadership. There are differences of opinions, and we should have thoughtful discussion. And that's what we've been trying to do over the last years, even in the difficult times when we haven't been able to all gather. I've run this office nonpartisan. The partisanship keeps getting thrown around a lot. I pledge to be nonpartisan. I have led as nonpartisan. And we just are pleased to be able to say that the Livability magazine just rated Rochester as #3 in the country for cities over 500,000 residents for its livability, which included our great economy and our housing. We are one of the top places to live in Minnesota. We are the top place to live in Minnesota, and one of 3 in the country. I'm proud of that, and I'll continue that tradition moving ahead.
Thank you. And Dean, your summation?
When we look at leaders in corporation, the best ones that are the leaders work their way up in that corporation. They started at the bottom and worked their way up. I worked 30 years as an employee and not a politician in government. I've solved $1 million problems. And when you hear a person that's life has been construction saying we need to slow down construction and not do things that are better for our opportunities, you know there's a serious problem that needs to be addressed. I also seen what happens when there's bias for victims in crimes. We've got to stop that and address it before it really affects our children and our families, because it is a big problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And finally, Brad, you're going to close us out here tonight with your summation.
Thank you. I would like to thank you to the In the City for Good and all the viewing audience tonight's debate, in addition to my peers. You know, there are some that are out there that seem to think they're somehow more patriotic than others because they scream the Pledge of Allegiance. My son's currently serving in the United States Air Force. My father and brother also have served. I'll say that is not the way they and other veterans I've spoken with would have gone about it. Make no mistake about it. If elected as your next mayor, all veterans and veterans organizations will have my support 110%. I'm thankful to those who have served and are serving our great country, and for those who have given the ultimate sacrifice to our country for the freedoms that we have today, freedoms that none of us should take lightly. Those aren't empty words or promises. It's based on my previous community involvement. Rochester, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to learn from you, and I'm going to lead with you. Never extreme left or never extreme right. We will get so much more done by working together than any one person, business, or entity could ever do on their own. I respectfully ask for your vote on August 9th for positive change. And again, thank you for taking part in tonight's forum. I greatly appreciate it.
Great, thank you. We have finished at just a few minutes early. And so again, we'd like to thank all of you who have been listening. Thank you to all of you candidates for your clear and helpful answers. Again, and one of you mentioned, if you have more questions, for sure, check out each of the candidates here have a website. It's easy to find. To Google them if you haven't found already. And we thank you for your willingness to serve by being a candidate for mayor. We're going to take a few minutes here to make a transition. We have the same Zoom link. And for those of you who are watching, it's all going to be the same, but we do need to make a little bit of a transition to get our council members in. And mayoral candidates, we'd like to have you watch and continue watching, but thank you again for your very, very helpful participation. So good night to you. We're not leaving. We're not leaving the meeting. I am going to have to just shuffle my papers so I have the right questions and the right random generator for questions. And we look forward to August 9th and everyone being able to place a vote where it's very important. So thank you again.